Hello and welcome to the Fantasy Football Report with your host Hasan. I'm joined by not by my co-host Blair Andrews, who has lost his voice, but we've got a phenomenal guest, Jack Miller. You can follow him on Twitter at JackMiller02. Jack, tell us. I'm sure a lot of people have seen you around. You've been a young guy making waves in fantasy. Do you mind actually talking to us a little bit about? What it's like being a college student and also being a successful fantasy writer at the same time.
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, like it's not. I don't think like overly difficult or anything because it's kind of just like what I do for extracurriculars. So like some people might be in like clubs or whatever, and then I mostly just spend that time on fantasy stuff. But yeah, like it's cool being on the younger side in the industry. But from what I've seen lately, there's a good number of young people in the industry, so it's cool to see that as well. And just thanks for having me on while I first time talking tonight. So just thank you for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
No. We've had you on before a few times. For those of you who don't know, Jack started off writing for here at RotoViz, and now he's a superstar over at Establish the Run. He's helping them out with projections, betting, and he does writing. So essentially, he's kind of one of their core members there, Jack. So if you have any advice for young people looking to get into this industry, and for those of you who are thinking about it, listen to what he has to say.
Yeah, I would say just start writing. Like I think a lot of people want to start making fantasy content, and they just never start. So I think the key is just to start doing it, and you can make your own blog. It's super easy with Substack or whatever these days, or you could find a site like RotoViz was where I first started writing, and can't say enough good things about RotoViz, which is why it's great to be back on this pod. But yeah, like I just think a big thing is just breaking that entry barrier and just starting doing something, tweeting, posting good stuff on Twitter, because that's how a lot of stuff gets noticed, is through your Twitter presence. And that's pretty much all I'd have to say on that.
Yeah, and for those of you who are thinking, please pitch RotoViz. We're always constantly looking for newer writers. Again, like Jack said, like a lot of people will never take that first step. So just take the first step and see what happens. Even if you just want to do it for fun, try it out. Like honestly, what have you got to lose? And speaking of what do you have to lose, the Eagles absolutely beat up the Titans today, man. Like this was like a revenge game for revenge games. Right, like AJ Brown. I'm gonna have to pull up their stats. I'm sorry, I don't have these off the top of my head here, but AJ Brown to Jalen Hurts connection, Jalen Hurts to AJ Brown connection. Sorry for that. Was absolutely lethal today. Hurts completed 29 of his 39 attempts for 380 yards and 3 scores, and AJ Brown absolutely balled out. He got 8 of his 10 targets for 119 yards and 2 scores. Jack, in your opinion, like, are we gonna see like a second resurgence of this like hyper aggressive, like on fire Eagles offense down the stretch?
I think we might, and I think with Dallas Goedert out, it's all going to center around AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. They both went off again today, and they over the past couple weeks without Goedert, they've posted just insanely high target shares. Like Goedert was, commanding upper teens, low 20% target share. I think in the past 2 weeks before this one, Eagles tight ends combined for 2 total targets, and then today they had looks like 4 targets on 41 team passing attempts. So the tight end position has just kind of been phased out with Goedert not on the field, and that has been really good news for both Brown and Smith. So I think this offense has been clicking all year. It doesn't really show signs of slowing down, and it's all going to be centered around AJB and Devontae Smith.
Yeah, the Eagles really attacked the Titans where they're weakest, which is deep, and you can see that just by like the length of touchdowns that were caught. Just the gaudy Smith. I mean, like just the gaudy total. Like Devonta Smith got 5 of his 8 targets for 102 yards and a score, and then Jack Stoll got all 3 of his targets for 41 yards. Quez Watkins got 5 of his 6 targets for 37 yards. Right, so like they really exploited the Titans' soft underbelly. That's like their cornerbacks. On the flip side, I mean, again, like something that Blair and I have talked a little bit about was like the fact that like the Eagles went on a little bit of a power outage. just by virtue of one touchdown regression, and then also just not being forced to really play all that fast. And again, and the reason I'm asking is because I am a little nervous, right? Because as we get into the fantasy playoffs, they've got games against the Giants, the Bears, the Cowboys, and then the Saints, right? So like of all of those, you can only really in your mind's eye see one as this potential shootout in the Cowboys. But do you do you think it's like both players are going to be able to find ceilings, or is it going to be more like if you got him, you got to start him type of stuff?
I think for both of them, if you have them, you have to start them. Goddard, I just looked it up. Goddard says he hopes to be healthy for week 15, which will be a little bit of a dock to their target share. But I think both of them have just been so great all year long that if you've got them, you're starting them.
Yeah, and then I'm over here kicking myself because I know you and I both like to wager on prop bets, and about 10 minutes for kickoff, I was like, do I play that AJ Brown over 5.5 racks at like plus money? And I never pulled the trigger because I like wasting money. I actually played a bunch of losers. Actually, I was finding these horrible edges that I was just like, yep, time to throw some money away. On the other side, the Titans got blown out so badly that for a brief minute, I thought I confused Julius Chestnut with Joey Chestnut. I was like, this has got to be terrible. Okay, so the Titans put up 10 points. Derrick Henry had a really bad game, man. He had like 11 carries for 30 yards and no scores. He also got 2 of his 3 targets for 8 yards. Woods had it. I mean, man is dust, right? Got 1 of his 5 targets for 6 yards. I guess I saw Heath Ledger. No, not Heath Ledger. I saw what's his name? Heath from CBS. I apologize.
Cummings, I think.
Yeah, yes, Heath Cummings on Twitter. Like, I'm so sorry for messing your name up, Heath. He posted about the days of Derrick Henry being like an out and out league winner are over. Do you believe that?
I think generally it's kind of the same Henry it's always been, where he's just so reliant on rushing volume. He only had 11 carries today. I think a big part of that is that, the Titans lost by 25. They had to throw, and they also just had really low play volume on the whole. Tannehill only threw 22 passes. I still think Henry has like the ceiling to be elite, especially when the Titans get in positive script. But he is more script dependent than a lot of other mid to high end RB1s, just because he doesn't catch the ball that much and he's so reliant on insane rushing volume.
Yeah, and just for everyone who's watching and listening, Henry's got like a pretty plush playoff schedule. Next week is the Jaguars, then at the Chargers, then home versus the Texans, then they get the Cowboys, right? So the Cowboys is the one that's the fantasy playoff. I mean, that's the championship game. You can't sit him there if you get there. But the other 3 games are pretty good, right? Like those are all fairly weak in terms of rush DVOA. They're simply not good teams, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. That Cowboys game, like you said, might be tough, but leading up to the fantasy title week, it's all systems go, I think, for Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I wanted to get your thoughts on Treylon Burks, right? So he got his only target for 25 yards and a touchdown before departing with a horrible, like what looked like a really bad concussion. I really wanted to get your thoughts more so because, like, I mean, from a redraft perspective, he's been underwhelming. But where would you be on him? What would his price need to be next season? Where would you be taking him in best ball drafts when he opens up next season? And what is your dynasty outlook on this guy?
That's an interesting question because it comes down to like kind of the same thing it's been for Titans pass catchers, where they don't throw much, but the receiver talent looks good. And I think for Burks, he's actually been like pretty solid when he's been on the field. The past couple weeks, he's been good. He's commanded targets, and then today he had like an awesome catch on the same play he got knocked out on. And so I think ADP wise, it wouldn't like really surprise me to see him go in like the 5th or 6th round, because I think slowly people are catching on to second year receiver thing, and he's been like very good. Recently, obviously, he's had trouble with injuries with the turf toe, and now the what I assume is a pretty decent concussion.
It was terrible. Did you see him?
Yeah, it did not look good.
Oh, that feels so bad for the guy.
No, yeah, he's been balling too. It was definitely tough. But yeah, I think he could definitely be like a 5th-round best ball pick next year, 5th, 6th round. In Dynasty, I don't know what people are selling for. Honestly, you could probably answer that one better than me since you're, I think, more in tune with the Dynasty streets. But he's a guy I'd be looking to buy because I feel like the rookie year has been like kind of encouraging when he's on the field. He just hasn't been on the field a ton.
Yeah, people were able to move him for like a first, right? So you're getting even value, like pretty much break even where you're getting him. I always hate giving that type of pickup because you never really know, right? Like what's the difference here between like a Burks, like unless you really like in a future first, if especially the rebuilder, right? Like to me, it's like a wash at that point. So yeah, I'm definitely with you. I think I'm in on him. I think he's definitely going to go in at the 5-6 turn to open up the year, and then you're just going to get higher from there. I think a lot of it comes down to what the Titans do at quarterback, right? Like I don't know if Malik showed enough to really be like the guy. But then if and I don't think the Titans are going to be picking high enough. I don't know if they can continue rolling out Kenny.
Yeah, that's a good point because I think if Willis has looked like bad, and I think if he is QB, then all of their pass catcher ADPs are just going to be like super low. But if it's Tannehill or if it's some other thrower of a football, or someone who has shown, I guess, more than Willis at this point, then 5th round is probably where he goes.
That's just going to be totally out of left field, right? But like, I guess I don't understand why there was so much optimism around Trey Lance, because he didn't really show, like he hasn't shown much. And I guess we can actually probably just skip to that right now, in that the Niners thrashed the Dolphins today, 33-17. And the surprise here was Brock Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, who completed 25 of 37 attempts for 210 yards, 2 scores, and an interception. Right, Jimmy Garoppolo exited very early, and they leaned very heavily on CMC, Debo, Ayuk, and Purdy looked capable. So I wanted to get your thoughts on really what you think happens in this QB situation next year, because the Niners have talked a little bit about, we're amenable to bringing back Garoppolo provided there's a contract restructure, and Garoppolo seems amenable to that too.
Yeah, I feel like they kind of like have to go back to Lance just because it would be such a bad look if they did all this for Lance and then gave up on him after what he played this year, like 2 or 3 games. But I do think like there was their report, like you said, that they could bring Jimmy G back. Maybe that's just because they saw this year like that it's valuable to have a very good backup, and maybe maybe they actually are thinking about a competition. But I mean, we'll see there. I would bet on Lance.
I agree. I think I would take Lance as the starter. I think restructuring Jimmy G's contract, but then working in some kind of trade clause that makes his contract more team friendly to trade. You know what I mean? His current contract is no team wants that.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's such an albatross.
Yeah, and it kind of depends on what Jimmy wants too, because like he could be like the no questions asked starter for like I don't know the Jets or Colts or someone, right? Like a pretty decent team.
Who are just missing the one piece, right?
Right, yeah. Or he could, like being a backup quarterback in San Francisco is a pretty good gig. So it comes down to, I guess, what he wants.
Yeah, he's like the most popular guy in the NFL anyway. Like when Trey Lance came out really flat to start the year, like everyone was like, "It's Jimmy time."
Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Like it was like for quite a while, like people were like trolling everyone on Twitter about it, right? So it was one of those things. Yeah, I just wanted to briefly touch on the other side of the ball. Not a lot to say. The Finns look terrible. I think some of this had to do with the fact that they lost Jalen Waddle. Waddle left with an injury. I'm not so sure if I think he might have returned for like a play or two. But Tyreek Hill went off, got 9 of his 13 targets for 146 yards and a score. All right, so this is sort of a two-part question. How potent is Tua without Waddle, in your opinion, going forward, like rest of the season? And then two, like, how high, like, is like Tyreek Hill just like a slam dunk number one wide receiver rest of the year?
I think on Tyreek, he would be like the target share is just going to be crazy, and then he's efficient. The offense is efficient. So I think regardless of Waddle status, and then especially if Waddle misses, Tyreek's just going to go crazy. And then on Tua, I still think he'd be a pretty easy fantasy starter. Maybe I'm underestimating the Waddle loss. I guess we'll see. But I still think with McDaniel and Tyreek, that that offense is still just going to be good because I trust McDaniel to scheme up pretty easy completions for Tua and get the ball in space to Tyreek and let him kind of do his thing. It's obviously a hit losing like a wide receiver of Jalen Waddle's caliber, but I think maybe he's not like a top 6 quarterback. Maybe he's a top 10 quarterback, but I still think he's a fantasy starter.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, maybe we might see more targets to Raheem Mostert, right? Like he didn't see any targets today, but maybe they start using him more in the receiving game.
Could be him and Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff Wilson saw 2 targets today and caught none of them. I think Tua looked off all day today. Yeah, Joe King asked, is Waddle injury serious? I don't know. I think he played like a couple of series and he got a target. So I don't know how serious his injury is, Joe. It's like that. Like, that's kind of what we're discussing, just sort of more like contingency. Because I have no interest in River Cracraft or Trent Sherfield. Although I will say, River Cracraft is like a preseason DFS like hero from like years ago.
His name is River Cracraft. I feel like that's a boost by itself. It's a sick name.
Yeah, you do some of the projection stuff for ETR. Like how much you're gonna have to adjust his projection down. That last name.
I mean, we're gonna have to crank River Cracraft's way up if Jalen Waddle misses time simply for the name factor.
Yeah. Homer Simpson asks, down 10, do I start Zeke, Olave, or Kamara? Jack, I'm thinking this is like an Olave moment, right?
I'd say Olave or Kamara.
Yeah, I think one of the Saints guys.
Yeah, Zeke is pretty clear. I think third there for me.
Yeah, I really like have no interest. I mean, like the Colts are. Do you guys like at ETR? Do you guys have the Colts with a fairly stout run defense as well?
Honestly, Leone does all the team stuff and the algo stuff. I just do like the target shares, and carry shares. But yeah, although we do have the Cowboys running like a bunch tonight.
Yes, I mean yes, so do we. I mean like you saw over on Bet the Prop, we're fairly heavy on Matt Ryan unders. Did you join us in that or?
I missed that one. I was not at my computer, and these move so fast now.
These move so fast now, man. Like now, like it's such a for those of you who are now getting into the sports betting game. There was a time a while ago where these numbers would just sit forever. Now
you gotta be at your computer right when it comes out, or you're not getting it.
You're not getting anything. I mean now you look at one of these lines funny and it just moves.
Yeah.
Like, you can think about it, like it's gone. I degen bet Matt Ryan under longest comp as well. Like so, if that one I think might be sitting around. So if you have any interest in degenning that one,
might have to. Not like they have any guys that are really challenging down the field, except I guess Alec Pierce.
Yeah. We're because of the kind of season it's been, we're probably gonna watch Alec Pierce bust off a long run, and that'll be like
first play of the game probably too.
Yeah, just like what am I doing with my life? Speaking of what am I doing with my life? Today Adam Thielen stabbed me directly in the heart when he went over his longest comp prop. The longest comp was 20.5. The Jets just left him wide open, and he busted that one out. But I'm going to use this as a time to talk a little bit about Bam Knight. Is this guy for real? Like back-to-back 100 yards from scrimmage games for a UDFA?
It looks like he might be. I think it's going to go back to Michael Carter being pretty involved once he's healthy. But I honestly kind of thought that Bam Knight wouldn't be this much of a workhorse. Like, he had 15 carries, James Robinson had 4, Ty Johnson had 1. Then Zonovan also had 5 targets, so that's a really valuable workload. I mean, the question will be what's it look like once Michael Carter's back. But I think if Carter misses another game, and he could with an ankle sprain, I think Bam Knight is a fantasy starter.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. Like with Bam Knight, like the one thing about him, I think, is this reminds me of man, Philip. Remember when Philip Lindsay first came out?
Mm-hmm.
Like where he was just putting up 100 yards from scrimmage back to back. Like this is what it feels a little bit like, and he's doing it on the ground and through the air. I'm here for the hype train. You know, like I love seeing these UDFAs come out firing. I love seeing them succeed. So I'm like all in on Bam. And again, it's sad because James Robinson was that guy. You know, like this time last year, James Robinson was that guy, right? Like for the Jags. So it's just one of those, like, I just love it when these guys do well. Corey Davis returns. He instantly somehow has leapfrogged Elijah Moore in the pecking order. He had 10 targets, got 5 of those for 85 yards. So this is a two-part question. One, Corey Davis, is he truly like flex worthy now? Like wide receiver 3, slot him in, type of guy. And then 2, like what does this mean for Elijah Moore next year?
So for Corey Davis, I don't really think I'd want to stick him in the flex. He did have 585 on 10 targets today, but the Jets also threw 58 times, which is just ridiculous. But the target share all year has been kind of consistently like mid-teens, and I feel like, I love the Mike White story, but I feel like I'm like a 15-16% target share from Mike White is not really something I'd be looking to start every week in the flex. And then on Elijah, I really hope they move him and he gets somewhere where he can be a big part of the offense. I don't know what they're going to do. It seems like they don't really want to move him for whatever reason.
No.
But I'm still a big believer in the talents, and, maybe I'm clinging to my priors too much, but he was just so good coming out of college. And so he looked like he had so much potential last year.
I don't think you're clinging to your priors that hard, right? Because I was clinging to my priors on Chase Claypool, and we can just seek on over to that game real quick, actually, because Chase Claypool was kind of balling out a little bit, right, today, before getting hurt. He had 6 targets, got 5 of those for 28 yards. He actually was heating up. So again, like, if I'm a believer in the talent, where would you be in on Elijah Moore next year? I'm kind of hoping, between you and me, I'm hoping this trend of him like sort of doing this disappearing act continues, so he opens the year in that like 15th, 16th round range. And that's where I want to be taking him.
Yeah, if he's going 15, 16 round, I'd be super in. I don't think anyone could like confidently say where he ends up because he might not be in New York. I feel like he's a guy where off-season reports are going to have a huge impact.
He's going to be one of those key off-season ADP guys where if you get right, you're going to get right at like this minuscule cost. And if you get wrong, it won't really hurt you that bad. Now, the issue is, I think I'd be way out if he starts like going up into the 12th round again, because I've got no interest in that again.
Yeah, I have no idea. I want to be in on him so bad, so I'm scared I would just like end up chasing it. But he does seem like a guy to me where, especially in like the underdog best ball bubble, like people just love him so much, including both of us, that like I'm scared that we're not going to get that crazy discount just because people want to believe in the talent so much. But I have no idea.
I'm with you. And then another guy who's kind of zombieing his way, but like is not productive down the stretch is Cole Kmet. All it took was like Justin Fields coming to life, but Cole Kmet had another good game. Got 6 of his 7 targets for 72 yards. Is this for real? Like, is Cole Kmet turning the corner here? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, like they're not going to pass very much, but with no Mooney, I didn't actually see an update on Claypool. I don't know if he's going to play next week
I don't know what he's going to do next week. Yeah.
But Kmet should get a ton of targets, or I shouldn't say a ton of targets because they're going to throw the ball 20 times a game, but he's going to have a high target share at least. And so on volume alone, I think you could make the argument that he's in play.
Yeah. On the other side of the ball, the only guy I really wanted to get your notes on was Christian Watson. He's someone who I was like hammering when he went into like that 16th, 17th, 18th final round type of picks. He's come good, right? Where do you expect him? Because even today, he got 3 of his 6 targets for 48 yards and a score. He also had 1 rushing touchdown for 46 yards, right? Where do you think he's going to be next year?
Yeah, he's another guy where I feel like people are catching on to the year 2 wide receiver thing, and so he might get steamed up. Like, I don't even know where. Like, do you think it's crazy to expect him to go in like at the 4-5 turn or something?
Yeah, I think that's too rich.
Okay.
Especially given Aaron Rodgers, man. I think he's going to be an 8th, 9th round guy.
I think if he goes 8-9, I'll have a ton of Christian Watson.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a ton of him, and then I'm gonna be really pissed off because I'm gonna remember the good days where I had him in like at the 16th, 17th, 18th round.
Yeah, I think he
I mean,
gets steamed up.
yeah, no, I mean,
Ridiculous.
he's gonna get really steamed, man. So like let me rephrase the question then. Who do you think has a higher ADP in August of next year, August 1 next year, Dobbs or Watson?
Watson, I think like pretty handily.
Shit, that's a complete 180 from where we were this year, right?
Yeah.
So that sucks. That sucks. But if we get, and like the issue is like Dubs won't be far behind. It's not like people have forgotten that he exists and is pretty good.
Yeah, it's just Watson has just been so much like better. Like they both have had their games where they've gotten targets, but Watson has like 4 touchdowns in like 5 games or 8 touchdowns in 4 games, not 5 or 4 and 5.
He's got that nose for the end zone type thing, right? It's just And the guy, like, it's such a film wear undertake, but he really glides across the field. It's like watching James Cook run a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like these guys who look on the screen, they look completely different to like other contemporary players.
Yeah, he's big
Effortless.
and fast, and it's easy for him.
Effortless. Not sure if I have any notes here on the running backs. This is kind of the AJ Dillon we expected with Aaron Jones picking up that knock on his shin. Don't know what's going to happen with Jones going forward. I want to get your take on Aaron Rodgers, man. So this is a guy who, because I hate money, again, I totally shied away from playing any of his unders. His like pass attempt total was 32.5. I think his passing yardage was like 240. I even thought about taking it live and he was 270. Like, I just didn't play any of the Rodgers unders. Like, do you think that he's, one, going to be in the NFL next year, and 2, do you think it's going to be for the Green Bay Packers?
I would guess yes to both, but it wouldn't surprise me if it's if he's not. I do think he'd be more likely to like retire than to go to another team. But I don't really know. I'm kind of just like making that up. But I think he has a little more left in him.
Yeah. Speaking of retired quarterbacks, you want to talk a little bit about Russell Wilson?
Let's do it.
Thank you. I've been working on those all season. All right, so this is like gotta be, every time we talk about this team, they're hitting a new all-time low, right? And this week might have done it for me, right? Lamar Jackson goes out really early with a bad knee injury, and they lose to a Tyler Huntley-led Baltimore Ravens in the last minute.
It's not great. Right? It's not great.
And this is like Tyler Huntley completed 27 of his 32 passes for 187 yards and 1 interception. He had the 41 yards on the ground and a touchdown. This team got like nothing going, man, and somehow they still beat like the Broncos. And like yes, like Cortland Sutton hurt his hammy, right, and that's sad, but they were using Greg Dulcich as a primary pass catcher and the primary way to move the ball along with Latavius Murray. So one, do you believe Russell Wilson, if he still exists, is there still any chance of this guy bouncing back, or is this it? And then 2, like, where are you on this Cortland Sutton versus Jerry Jeudy debate?
I think this is I hope at least this is rock bottom for Russell Wilson. I don't think he's ever going to be like Seahawks Russ, but I do think this is just a down year for him. And then I also think if they get rid of Hackett in the offseason, that will be good
They
for him
gotta get rid
because
of him.
that guy is just terrible. I don't think I think his days as like a fantasy QB1 are over, but I think his days are like being one of the worst QBs in the league. I hope this is the only year we see him that low. And then
He kind of looked a little bit like this last year too, though.
yeah, near the tail end of last year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean we'll see. And then Sun versus Judy, it's tough because they've both been like kind of early. Judy's been in and out of the lineup. We saw Sun get hurt today. I kind of think they're pretty dead even. Most weeks when both are healthy, we have them pretty even in target share. I think Sutton, I guess, gets the nod as more of the big play guy who's more likely to score touchdowns. Not that the Broncos score many of those, but I think I lean Sutton by a little bit if both are healthy, but I don't think there's much differentiating them.
I think I'm actually on Team Judy, which is something that I've had to think about. Is that like Judy seems to get it done on like a handful of targets, and he's efficient with them, so he always he constantly earns targets like when he's in the lineup versus Sutton, who gets force fed them, and is. I mean, again, like I think the thing with Judy versus Sutton is you're never getting a true discount in either, right? Like DFS salaries are priced within $100 of each other. Props, their lines are almost the same. ADPs, when you draft them in basketball, they're almost the same. Sutton probably holds a little bit more dynasty value right now, but you're still not going to get either of them away for like without a good solid offer. Like I just think that like they were overvalued this year, and I don't think the market's going to correct for that next year. So I think they might be overvalued again next year. So I might actually lean to being underweight the field for both guys, unless there's like some kind of truly sexy coaching change versus this guy who can't even like run a clock.
Yeah, for sure. I could definitely see that people kind of wish casting a Broncos revival and a Russ revival mostly when it might not be there. But I think hopefully there's a coaching change because I don't know how much longer, I can deal with this.
Man, I don't know how much longer anyone can deal with this, but like I think the Broncos are really going to go through with the rest of the season with the lame duck coach. There's been a lot of good stories about sort of how the coaching staff in Seattle treated Russ with kid gloves, and Russ has somehow come to expect that treatment even in Denver, despite it being a true new beginning. Like he's assuming that his golden halo from Seattle deserves to carry over type of stuff. I think there was did you see that video clip of him getting yelled at by the guy from the defense?
Yeah.
And like right in front of the head coach, and the head coach is like, I'm just going to stand here and pretend like this isn't happening.
Yeah, it definitely does not seem like his teammates are too keen on him, which obviously bodes pretty terribly for someone, that they just traded so much for and all that.
Yeah, out of curiosity, with Latavius Murray, where are you at? Like this receiving usage came out of nowhere, despite Mike Boone being active. He still got, oh my god, he still got 4 targets, and he caught all 4 of them for a whopping 14 yards. Like,
yeah, I kind of want to see.
Doing?
I'm curious about like kind of. I haven't had a chance to look into it yet, but like the snaps like breakdown, like was Latavius playing in passing situations, or did he just kind of get lucky enough for early down catches? I feel like they used Boone in passing situations earlier this year. I don't know if he was used that way this week. But I feel like they're probably going to get back to that. It was Boone's first game back, so maybe he wasn't all the way ready to get all the way back to that role. But I feel like Latavius can still be viable getting a huge percentage of the carries and then getting 2-3 targets a week. I feel like that's a pretty viable fantasy workload if the Broncos can keep games semi-competitive.
Yeah, I was on the under 2.5 receptions for Latavius, so like the fact that he went over that but like had I just played a different stat, I would have been fine. Like it's a little frustrating. Oh, I forgot. There's another injury that we should talk about in the Seattle game, which is Ken Walker. Ken Walker seemed to get hurt early. He was seen like sort of with his foot propped up, just kind of off to the side. And like his teammates were coming over and wishing him well. Like is DJ Dallas now like your highest waiver priority ad this week?
I think it depends on the news because Tony Jones, I think, got banged up too. Dallas
Yeah.
actually got banged up too, and he was like doubtful or something, and then they just like put him back in the game because all of their running backs were hurt. So I think the next like 24 hours will put a lot more clarity into what to expect there. And then Travis Homer I don't know his exact injury timeline, but he could throw a big wrench in the Dallas outlook too if he comes back in coming weeks.
Yeah, but like just out of curiosity from that perspective, like the wheels up for like the passing game, specifically Noah Fant. I mean, like Fant might actually be on waivers just because he's been so inconsistent. But like today he did well, caught 4 of his 5 targets for 42 yards and a score. Like, is Fant like a desperation tight end play? Which I mean, like, and frankly, aren't they all desperation tight end plays?
Yeah, I mean everyone outside the top like 5 is a desperation play, but
5. I got like 2, man.
Yeah,
like 2 or 3.
everyone but Kelsey.
Yeah.
No, but I think I'd still think of Fant more as like a tight end 2 type, even if Walker is hurt. I think like Lockett and Metcalf are obviously every week starters, but Fant just has not ran like a high enough percentage of routes. I think that like depend on every week. They still have Disley involved. They still have Colby Parkinson. So I would not want to rely on Fant like every week, but like you said, like it's such a dart throw after like literally Kelsey. So, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day.
Yeah, eat Arby's. I mean, that's just
right.
when it comes down to tight ends, man, like just pray. Just
Right.
pray. Just pray. Like
Pray for a
maybe it's Pat.
Yeah.
Maybe it's Pat Fryermuth week. Maybe it's someone. Just pray. Pray someone is getting into the end zone for you that week. Speaking of tight ends who popped off, Gerald Everett popped off today. I think he got five targets. Hang on, let me just be 100% sure here. He got 6. No, he got 5 of his 6 targets for 80 yards and no scores. Keenan Allen came out firing late. He got 6 of his 14 targets for 88 yards and a score. So I just wanted to get your take here on Gerald Everett. Like, for as long as Mike Williams is out, I've been trying to plug him in wherever I've got him. Like, is that like your recommendation?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. They're a super pass heavy offense. Big Mike is out. Everett was limited last week with the groin, and I think that's why his routes were so low. But I think now that he's had a big game, I don't think his route numbers are even out yet. But I'm guessing he returned to more normal levels now that he's further removed from the groin injury. So I do think Everett is pretty viable right now.
Yeah. On the Vegas Raiders side of the ball, all I've got is Devontae Adams is a stone cold stud. He daggered the Chargers. 8 of his 12 targets, 177 yards, 2 scores. Josh Jacobs also did well, 26 carries, 144 yards, 1 touchdown. One, how much Adams do you have in best ball? And 2, why is Josh Jacobs ruining my life?
I think I'm around even on Adams. I think I'm probably like slightly above the 8.3 or whatever, just because I like usually draft wide receivers more than most people. And then Jacobs is also ruining my life. I think I have like 2 shares over all my underdog teams.
Yeah. Like every time I see how much I have of him in underdog, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. I probably should have bought the dip more than I did.
Same.
But yeah, both those guys are just awesome. I mean, the Raiders are 5-7, not a great year, but like still Jacobs and Adams like every week just dominant.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this in a game where I really needed him, Josh Jacobs only put up 22 fantasy points. He couldn't really put up like 52. Come on,
big
guy.
Disappointment. Big disappointment.
Big disappointment. Speaking of big disappointments, actually, I wanted to talk a little bit about Deshaun Watson. Man, talk about like the worst way to come back from, one of the like just one of the most egregiously bad layoffs that we've seen, right? And he comes back to play. People are like expecting. I mean, like the NFL was expecting him to come up and like, carve up the Texans like a turkey. That's why they like pushed the suspension out for this. The only thing he got revenge against were like any fantasy manager who was like sliding him into the lineup.
Yeah, I think, it was a lot of people enjoyed seeing Watson kind of falter this week. Even though the Browns did win, he played pretty awful, like you said. There was a report this morning that they kind of want to like ease him in and rely on the ground game, which they can do when they have Chubb and Kareem Hunt until he kind of gets his feet wet again. But I do think it will take some time for Watson to kick the rust off. Like he hasn't played in, so long. 700 days, I think, was the number or thereabout. So I do think maybe Watson takes a couple weeks to get back to where he was pre-suspension, and maybe it takes all the way till next year for him to really get back to that top flight fantasy quarterback we saw a couple years ago.
Edward Zhang asks, start Zeke or Kamara full PPR? I think I'm going to go with Kamara there.
I'm team Kamara there too.
As an aside, like how are you in a situation where you're starting Zeke or Kamara? That's amazing, man. Good job.
Yeah, that's a good problem to have.
That's a really good problem. Like I'm like, do I start Kamara or am I gonna start, no joke, James Robinson? Like I think those are my options.
Yeah, week 13, some teams are struggling.
Week 13, do I play Justin Jackson or Keyshawn Vaughn? Like
right. Like Eno Benjamin's active today. Like
Eno Benjamin's active. Can I get half a point? On the other hand, a guy who didn't have a really bad return to form after a long layoff, not as long as Watson, was Jamar Chase. So Cincinnati actually beat the Chiefs today, 27-24. Chase was a pretty big feature here. He got 7 of his 8 targets for 97 yards. That's absolutely insane. He said he got so Edward says he got Ramondre with CD, Waddle, and Godwin. That's ridiculous. That's a good team. That's a really good team here. That's just that's good. That's just good drafting right there. But yeah, Jack, I wanted to get your thoughts here on Chase. He didn't look limited at all. In fact, he somehow looked more fluid. Like somehow he just looked like he hadn't taken all this time off. Do you think that we're going to see 100% healthy Chase down the stretch here?
I think for the most part, yeah. I think there was that quote he had, or that report, I should say, that came out about how he thought, or the Bengals thought maybe that he was going to play last week, and then they just decided, or he decided that he wasn't 100% there, and he wanted to wait until he was complete full throttle to come back. And so I think that's what they did. They waited till this week when the hip was a complete thing of the past, not even in his mind anymore. So I think Chase is all the way back to being the same stud he's always been, pretty much.
Yeah, and then T. Higgins' workload, he took a kind of a big hit today. He had 5 targets. He got 3 for 35 in a score. That score, by the way, was amazing. But Tyler Boyd was more efficient. Like, is this relegate, like with Chase being back, does it relegate Higgins to like? Because I know you do the target shares. How do you like apportion their target shares? Like, is it like Chase is the alpha, and then like are you docking like 4 percentage points from that, then saying that that's Higgins, or like you're like, yeah, Higgins is going to be battling it out with like Boyd. Like, how do you determine that?
Yeah, so when the Bengals are healthy, they're actually like, I think like one of the easiest teams to do every week, because it's like the same 3 guys running a route on pretty much every play with Chase, Higgins, and Boyd, and then there's like a lot of data on which to lean on with like last season and now this season when Chase was healthy. So usually we have Chase in like the 26% range target share wise, Higgins in like the 23% range, and then Boyd in like the 15-ish% range. So that's pretty much how it works out. I mean, Chase obviously went off this week, but there's kind of a lot of stuff saying like Higgins is still a stud when Chase is healthy. So I don't really want to overreact to one game. I wouldn't like panic on Higgins or anything just because he only had 5 targets this week.
Yeah, but he had one hell of a score. Z Money, trying 25 asks, I need Pollard and Olave to combine for 21 points to get the dub. I think you do, man. I think you
Yeah,
do.
I'd say you're probably the favorite there.
I'd say you're the favorite. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna last question here, and we can head on out to watch Sunday Night Football. Isaiah Pacheco. I don't know if any of you guys know, but friend of the show, Pat Kerrane, has been kidnapped by NBC, and they made him sing, I believe, about Isaiah Pacheco and not Ronald Jones. And he was singing about how Pacheco should score 2 touchdowns. Pacheco had like a fantastic day today. He 14 carries, 66 yards in a score. He also caught both of his targets for 16 yards. Like, you can't bench Pacheco, can you, now going forward at all?
Yeah, he's just getting so many carries, and like he's not super involved as a receiver, but he did have a couple catches today. And he's getting goal line work too. But yeah, I mean, Kerrane had a great song about him. I'm sure that's what Kerrane envisioned when he signed on with NBC, that he was gonna sing songs about Isaiah Pacheco as Matthew Berry watched on. But yeah, I think Pacheco's like firmly in the starting conversation. I don't know if I'd say he's like a must start every week, because he's not a huge like receiving guy, so you're kind of depending on him getting there on his 10 to 15 carries every week. But I do think he's like definitely a viable option at this point.
Yeah, and it's just tough though, because like for a team like the Chiefs, you think they generate a ton of red zone and a lot of opportunity for their backs, but like they haven't been as good for running backs as you think they should be. It's not like, like on the other hand, you had like Samaje Perine on the other side of the ball, who had 21 carries, 106 yards, no scores. Then he had 7 targets, got 6 of those for 49 yards. Like, what is like 150 yards from scrimmage for like the Bengals back? And like we're over here like yelping about Pacheco's 70 yards from scrimmage because he scored a touchdown, right? Like it's like you said, it's not like a highly valuable role. It's a pretty solid RB2, but like you don't have to jam him.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like Chiefs and Bills, like probably the 2 best offenses in the league, and neither of them really have this like super valuable running back role.
Yeah, and they've aggressively tried to fix that, right? Like it's not like they're not going. Like, I mean, like the Chiefs took Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and then like the Bills moved up to draft James Cook. James Cook might actually be the guy. Like, I don't know how you can sit him, but like I don't feel good starting him.
Yeah, it feels like something that could be volatile to me, because Singletary just has like such a sizable track record of like the Bills just like continuously like trying other guys and ending up going back to Singletary. But I do think like the next couple weeks will be pretty telling in terms of like, has James Cook actually ascended, or like are they just going to do what they did with Zach Moss, where they give him the ball a good amount one week and then next week it's Singletary time again.
Yeah. All right. So we have a new tradition here on the show where we talk a little bit about the games that are upcoming. Jack, what are you most excited about from this Colts Cowboys game and tomorrow night's Saints Bucks game?
I am excited to see if CeeDee Lamb can drop 30 points or whatever I need to win my league. I'm down a bunch now, so a huge CeeDee game would be great for me.
I would need that too.
And then tomorrow, I think I'm excited to see Olave again. He's been one of my favorite guys to watch this year.
He really has. He really has, man.
Yeah, he's been fun to watch, and I'm excited to see how the Saints can put off putting Jameis in the game and just watch Andy Dalton do nothing for 4 more quarters.
Yeah, and I'm interested. Like, really, tomorrow I'm going to be interested to see if Marshawn Lattimore plays at all, because I think I have a weird feeling that it's going to turn into a track meet where like Godwin and Evans could explode with Olave like being the bring back, right? So a pretty classic move there. I'm also interested to see if we see Lenny again, or if it's going to be more of the Rachaad White show.
Yeah, that's a good one. I think Bucks backfield is going to be really interesting to watch tomorrow.
Yeah. Also, thank you once again to Jack Miller. Follow him on Twitter at JackMiller02. Jack, do you have anything else to plug? Because you can find your stuff on RotoViz. You can find your stuff on Established to Run. Anywhere else that people can find you, or anything else you want to plug?
I think you pretty much hit it all. I think Jack Miller 02 on Twitter, and then ETR and past stuff on RotoViz. So I think that's pretty much it. Thanks again for having me on. This was a good time.
No, thank you. Good luck, everybody. done.